Good morning. Welcome. This is Agueda del Borgo on behalf of the Rhode Island Association of Realtors Global Council. We're happy to welcome our friends from Norway, Ireland, Rhode Island, and Newport, of course. A few housekeeping rules. The chat will be disabled. It's not going to be interactive in that way. However, we encourage folks to put in their questions, and we'll review those afterwards and respond accordingly. Let's see. This will be recorded, and you'll receive a link, all attendees. It also will be archived in the Rhode Island Association video library for future reference. Again, thank you so much for attending. We're looking forward to a great program, and we will allow all our panelists to introduce themselves so I don't bungle their names. And we will start with our friend Randy from Norway. Welcome.
Thank you, Agueda. I'm so happy to be together with you, friends. I will start sharing my PowerPoint, which is here, I think. Yeah. So it's so interesting to be together to see how we do our profession differently in each market. So I just tell them about myself. I am Randi Hollingen. I'm the president of the Norwegian Real Estate Association, and I also run my own business in a small town called Molde. A little bit about Norway. We have the Constitution Day, the 7th of May, and then we dress up in our national costumes and wave with the flags. We are a small population of nearly 5.6 million people, and we are a monarchy called the Kingdom of Norway, but the government is led by the Prime Minister. And the average income in Norway is about $65,000. We have some statistics to tell you about. We have a low unemployment rate and a high level of education. And you can see the women are more educated than the men. From being poor people emigrating to America at the end of the 1800s, we have become quite wealthy since 1970 because we found the oil and gas in the North Sea. So as you can see, the state's income is quite big, and half of the net income is from oil and gas. And we have, therefore, an oil fund to ensure the responsible and long-term management of the oil and gas resources of Norway. A little bit about our association, like your NAR in America. We were founded in 1932. We have 2,800 members, a little bit less than NAR. We have 10 local associations across the country, from north to south. And our national meeting is every second year. So our board is elected for 2 years at the national meeting. And here is my board for these days from 24 to 26, from north to south of Norway. So who are NEF, our association? We work to promote unity among members and contribute to a safe, accessible, and efficient housing market. NEF engages with policymakers, authorities, and stakeholders using legislation as a tool. And we are the leading provider of industry courses. We set professional and ethics standards and offer legal support to our members. In Norway, we have the politics strongly encourages home ownership, and the political goal is that most people should have the opportunity to be a home owner within their lifetime. And we have our mortgages, they are provided by the commercial banks. The government gives residents incentives to buy and maintain their homes, and we have very low tax on housing. And as you can see, compared to our neighbors in Europe, Norway has 80% of the people live in a home by homeowner. We have a lending regulation that limits credit and the price growth. But despite the lending regulation, the second-hand house prices are rising, mostly due to the fall of sales and construction of new homes, caused by the strong increase of construction costs after Corona and the war in Ukraine. So a little bit about our education. The Norwegian real estate brokers are regulated by a separate law. We have to have a 3-year bachelor's degree in real estate law and economics, and even 2 years on top of that of practice in a real estate business to obtain the permit. And the title Eiendomsmegler, the broker, is protected by law. And a little bit about our role. I know in America you have the one broker for the seller and one for the buyer, but we are in the middle. We have the duty to look after both the sellers and the buyer's interest. And we almost everyone in Norway who sells a home use a broker, a real estate broker, 98.5%. This is my hometown, Molde. And as you can see, it's a beautiful view, and we have a lot of tourists coming to Molde because of the nature. It's about 30,000 people living in our town. And this is the website of my company. I have my son in my company on the right-hand side on top here. And this is a typical website. We have, of course, a lot more properties, but this is various type of houses in many of the Norwegian towns and cities. Families live in detached houses. And if you divide the Norwegian crown that you can see here with 11, you will have about the correct US dollar price. And a foreigner can buy a property in Norway, it's no problem. You have to get a Norwegian ID number, and that you can get by applying to a Norwegian bank or a real estate broker. And you are all welcome to Norway, and I was so lucky to have your past president, Steve Brown, for 2 days, showing him our fjords. That was 3 years ago, and I also put on a photo of my own house, which is a old farmer's house built in 1876 with a barn. Thank you.
That was fabulous. Thank you so much. And we forgot to mention that you visited Newport last November. So you were here and in Providence and in Boston.
Yeah, that's
Wonderful.
right. Lovely.
Thank you so much. Liam, welcome.
Thank you very much. Hello from Dublin. My name is Liam Hogan. I'm an estate agent or realtor in the capital city, Dublin. I'm based on the west side of the city, and I've been in the business for over 20 years. I'm a retired policeman before that, so I hope you don't hold that against me. So I suppose a small bit about Ireland, first and foremost, is that Ireland is a very small, very open, uh, education-based economy. And because we are so small and so open, unfortunately, we're at the mercy of larger economies, especially our two major trading partners, the United States and Britain. Our trade with the US is about 67 billion per year, and with the UK about 16 billion. Population of the country is, you see, we don't recognize the border. Um, um, in the south of Ireland, we have a population of 5.3 billion, and in the north we have 1.9. So in total, about 7.2 million. We're almost at full employment, and the big problem we have at the moment in terms of property is that we are there's a huge demand for property here at the moment. I was at the Irish House Builders Association conference yesterday, which was extremely well attended, and our Minister for Housing addressed us as well. And a lot of the problems we're experiencing are in terms of A, planning, B, finance of the developers who are tasked with building those houses and commercial properties, uh, and C, affordability, because house prices have been increasing year on year by about 8 to 10% since around 2014-15. So it's just we're almost back up to where we were pre the banking crash of 2008. We at the moment, because we're only a small economy, but because we're small, we're producing about 25,000 housing units per year this year. It was at 33 last year, so it's dropped. And even the planning applications have dropped off. The planning applications in terms of apartment blocks or condo blocks has dropped by 55% in 2024. So that's a huge drop, and it's mainly because apartment blocks are not viable to build to sell. We have investment funds from all over the world buying them to rent because rents are so high here at the moment. Typical two-bedroom apartment would probably cost you on the open market, a new build, probably in the Greater Dublin area, would probably cost you somewhere around 3,000 to 3,300 per month, and that's out of a person's net monthly income, which is huge here in this country. We have we have a housing stock of 2.1 million, and there's about 55,000 transactions per year. And a lot of the problem is that we have people who are in 4-bed, 5-bedroom homes on their own. So they're kind of more or less empty nesters. And they have, if they want to sell their property to downsize, they have no place to go to. And meanwhile, the married couples with children can't get a place to live. And they're the problems we're facing at the moment. Affordability is the other problem, in that at the moment interest rates are such that it's costing our average mortgagee in or around €6 per thousand per month for their mortgage, and normally it will take a working couple, both of them professionals with fairly decent jobs, to be able to afford any sort of a decent house or apartment in around the Greater Dublin area. The about 55,000 transactions every year, and there is no restriction on foreign nationals buying in Ireland. To buy in Ireland, if you can buy, it doesn't guarantee you citizenship. That there are other routes to citizenship in Ireland. You can spend 90 days in the country, and you can use your property to visit here. So you can either leave it vacant or rent it. Costs of purchasing property. So if you want to get a mortgage here, if you're a foreign national, you want to get a mortgage here, you'll have to have 35% of a down payment. And then most of the major banks here will deal with you if you have that, because obviously you're bringing substantial equity to the table. We have a lot of, particularly Americans, purchasing here in the country, and just like Randy was saying, here in Ireland we have no history of buyer representation, but there are quite a lot of us, especially any of us who've done any sort of business in the United States, who are acting as buyers agents here in Ireland, including myself. In order to the cost in terms of purchasing, just say, a residential property here is you pay stamp duty at 1% up to $1 million. Between 1 million and 1.5 million, it is 1.5%, and then anything above 1.5 million, it is 6%. On the commercial property side, it's 7.5% stamp duty across the board. Um, your solicitor in Ireland, property is buyer beware. So it's up to you to find the faults. Now, obviously, there are exceptions to that rule. If the seller is aware of a substantial fault in the property, there's no notice on them to disclose it. And what normally happens is if the process very quickly in Ireland is if if the purchaser makes an offer, the offer is accepted, and then a sales agent, the selling agent will send out what's known as sales advice notes to both sets of attorneys, who will then handle the conveyancing between them. We don't have title companies here. 1% stamp duty up to 1 million, and then your cost from your legal team will be about 1% of the cost as well. It takes, believe it or not, 10 to 12 weeks to close. And if a person is buying a residential property here to as an investment, you can expect a return of somewhere around 8 to 10% gross, thereabouts. If you're buying commercial property here, the prime yields are in or around 5% at the moment for commercial property. And other than that, I think Ireland is open for business, but looking forward to hearing from someone.
Thank you so much, Liam. We'll get back to you because you have an interesting history. But first, we'll go on to Erin, and she is the Greater Chamber of Commerce Newport President and CEO. And welcome.
Good morning. Thank you so much for the invitation to participate today. I truly appreciate it. Just sharing my slides right now. Here we go. So yes, I'm the president and CEO of the Greater Newport Chamber of Commerce. I've been here for just about 10 years. And over the course of my tenure here, we've launched quite a few new initiatives, really to be responsive to our state's growing economy, but in particular, our region. We represent both Newport and Bristol counties, which are the coastal communities here in Rhode Island. And through that representation, we have about 1,000 members, as well as 9 different communities. And through that, we offer a number of different networking opportunities, events each year, as well as 2 new initiatives that are really important that I think we'll dive into a little bit now. The first one is Connect Greater Newport, and that is our regional economic development division of the Chamber. We've been underway for about 5 years, and we get support from the local municipalities, as well as the private sector and philanthropy, to really drive economic development throughout the region. Our structure in Rhode Island is a little bit different. We have 39 cities and towns, but in our region, those cities and towns have come together as part of the 2 counties to actually take the reins themselves, and they reached out to the Chamber to help them do that. As you can see, we are located very conveniently in just south of Boston and north of New York City. So we have a great market, great entree into the local business market throughout America. If you have clients or companies who are interested in entering the American market, we have a great entree. So we represent 2 counties, 9 municipalities, and our population is just about 136,000, whereas in the state it is about 1.1, a little over 1.1 million. But our quality of life is second to none. So we'll dive into this a little bit more. You can see some of the accolades that we have earned over the course of the last several years. And we continue to, receive these. For those of you who have visited Newport or Bristol or any of the other communities within our region, I think you will attest to some of the really great opportunities for visitors. And I think we'll talk a little bit more about what it would be like if you were to live here. So we have beautiful beaches all across the shoreline for surfers, family beaches, rocky beaches, white sand beaches. It's truly beautiful. We also have lots of museums within the area. Not only do we have our mansions that I think many of you may be familiar with from the Gilded Age, but we also have Audrain and the Newport Car Museum, which have amazing rotating displays of beautiful cars and different types of automobiles. We also have lots of events each year and festivals and so forth. In October of every year, we have the Audrain Concours, where you'll see multiple different types of manufactured or manufacturers come and display their amazing autos. Arts and culture and entertainment. So we have lots of shops, restaurants, museums, various different types of activities around dancing, comedy, theater, live music, and you may also be familiar with our jazz and folk fests as well. Interestingly enough, we were contracted, the chamber was contracted with the organizers of the Jazz and Folk Fest, where we set up shop and did some surveying of individuals who were coming into the region just for the festival, and just tried to gauge, what would you ever like to live in an area like this? What sort of information and so forth would you need to consider relocating? So we have a lot of really good data that I'd be happy to provide for you all if you're interested, or any of your clients are interested. Again, outdoor adventures, biking, hiking, skydiving, lots of golf, and we also have polo, which has international polo matches with representation from your two countries as well each year. So lots of opportunities to not only support our international city and our international destination, but to support the people who live here in year round in different types of activity. And of course, I'm sure you all know about boating and sailing in the region. We like to talk about America's Cup and how we are the sailing capital of the world from our perspective. We understand others might stake claim to that as well. But certainly it is something that just goes to the heart of our culture and the type of atmosphere that we live in. Not only are we seasonal, there's actually year-round sailing and sailing clubs and yacht clubs and so forth. So we actually are home to the oldest operating yacht club in America as well. Now I want to talk a little bit about Rhode Island in particular. What makes it an attractive relocation or geographic location for companies to start or have a branch or a division of their company locate is the tremendous amount of access that you have in Rhode Island. I described how small we are with, just under 1.2 million population, but we have 4 congressional delegates who are on many people's speed dial. They can attend lots of different events. They want to be supportive of the local business community, both those who are starting from small, mid, and large, but then also those who are relocating. So they're heavily engaged along with the governor's office and the Commerce Department that we have here in Rhode Island. We work very closely with them, so we are an entree into that market and those different opportunities that they offer, which we'll talk a little bit about in just a moment. But educational institutions are also a really important and connected part of our workforce for both higher ed and workforce development. You can see we have access to quite a few universities right here in Rhode Island. So the region is within 50 miles of 27 institutions, more than 140,000 students, which presents a lot of opportunity for workforce and talent pipeline. But what is even more interesting to me and likely to you is that our region, so those 2 counties, our workforce is more educated than 92% of counties in the United States. That is because we have Roger Williams University and Salve Regina University located right here, but we also have the U.S. Naval War College, which many of you may be familiar with, as well as other components like the Undersea Technology Innovation Center, SNEDIA, which is the Southeastern New England Defense Industry Alliance. They do a lot of training for STEM workforce in the defense community. So having Naval Station Newport located right in our region presents a tremendous opportunity for defense companies, ocean tech companies, and those and the like. And they are highly educated individuals and engineers, obviously, that work in that type of business. So we are also conveniently located, as I said, between Boston, New York, of course, Providence as well, which is our state's capital. But so we have close to 20,000 workers who actually work remotely. So a lot of the workforce that we see in the region choose to live where we are because of the great quality of life and quality of place that we have to offer. But they also have the convenience of working remotely and commuting into the office. COVID changed that quite a bit. We saw a big influx of residents come into the region from the Boston and New York markets who have decided to stay and make it home. So our blue economy in particular is not only a primary priority for the state's economic development, but I like to say that Newport, the greater Newport region, was the blue economy before the blue economy was a thing. Our primary industry sectors are defense, marine trades, tourism and recreation, technology, and as you can see, our population is well situated to help those types of businesses grow and attract the talent that they need. So you can see these are our main industries, as I indicated. You'll see the 4 subsectors here that are the fastest growing in our region, but actually growing faster than in any other county in the US as well. Professional, scientific, and technical services in particular are the area that we see grow. Here's a slide I thought was really interesting. We did this right after everything was reopened in 2021 after COVID. But you can see that we almost doubled in our number of blue tech companies during that time period, which is pretty significant. And that's just until 2021. So more than 500 establishments in IT and defense and shipbuilding and maritime-based businesses. But then on this slide, it shows more recent data over the course of the last decade where the professional, scientific, and technical services demonstrate the greatest growth, although 10 industries continue to grow. But so it's an additional 2,083 jobs, which represents 64% growth. Our growth is the sector, growth in the sector is driven by Naval Station Newport and the level of activity there. And I will also add that the desirability of the region attracts those senior and highly skilled professionals as well. The future expansion at Naval Station Newport related to NOAA vessels. NOAA vessels as well as U.S. Coast Guard cutters will be moving to Naval Station Newport. So we'll see definitely an expansion there. Also, obviously, a number of professionals that may be relocating from Norfolk, Virginia into the area with that skill set and that, experience and professional, level of skill that will be drawn into the region, which will also put, a priority on housing and new build within the region to help support the growth in that population. In addition to those statistics, we are investing pretty significantly in startups and the entrepreneurial ecosystem. So you can see listed here a number of individual organizations that are heavily involved. Number 3 here is Innovate Newport. Innovate Newport is actually an initiative of the Chamber. It's on the next slide. Here it is. We partnered with the city of Newport to renovate a 100-year-old building, which used to be an elementary school, and turn it into an international innovation hub. We have some permanent businesses that operate out of Innovate Newport, as well as co-working space, But it's really a hub of activity for the local business community, and a big focus of the efforts that we have underway are specifically related to the blue tech space. But you'll also see here this international collaboration. So we have been in conversations with different innovation hubs around the world to create partnerships where your businesses that operate in specific innovation hubs in your country, in your hometown, can have an opportunity and an entree into our market through these types of partnerships. So we do a number of different things like business plan pitch competitions. We host delegations regularly, as you can imagine, in the region, and look to continue to grow that. Another new program that we launched that is housed at Innovate Newport, but is more region-wide, is our soft landing program. And so we offer wraparound support, navigation service, and technical assistance for companies and professionals who are looking to relocate into the area or establish a presence. We are seeing a big uptick right now in those international companies who already have defense contracts or contracts involving wind energy and turbines and so forth, who are looking to establish a US presence because they recognize, maybe in this political atmosphere or the opportunity that the region represents to actually have a presence in the US. So we have set up shop to be able to support those to hit the ground running. And our growing portfolio of ocean tech companies cite these: sector growth, available space, capital access, research and development, networking, and talent pipeline as their main reasons for relocating into the area. So we do much more at the Chamber, but I know my time is limited, and I'm happy to answer questions later on in the program. But as you all know, location matters, right? And Newport is certainly something that should be on your client's list, and I'm here to help them consider, the opportunity that we could help to present with them. Thank you.
That's fabulous. Thank you so much. Julie, are you all set to go?
I am, but I think I'm going to let Annie start her presentation. We're both going to present
Sure.
a little bit about Newport and the real estate.
Fantastic. Thanks very much, Annie. And please introduce yourselves, all of your positions and all that good stuff, so folks understand, that you are experts in the field, and hopefully will look to contact you.
Annie, go ahead.
Hi, thanks, Julie. Hi, good morning, everyone. Yeah. So this is a wonderful, interesting presentation, especially for me, because the subject I'm going to talk about in Newport has brought me connections to Ireland and travel in Norway, which is really great. So let me share my screen. There we go. So I am really focusing this presentation on what draws people to Newport. Newport is really a small city. It's only about 27,000 people year round, much larger in the summer, of course, but it's pretty well known internationally. And I have a suggestion as to why Newport is well known globally for a city of its size. I think people are pretty surprised to hear that it's actually such a small city, because it's widely known in some circles. Now, I am a real estate broker at Lila Delman Compass. I've been in real estate and at Lila Delman for about 20 years, and I've been in Newport longer than that. And what drew me to Newport was I was in the sailing industry and the marine industry, working as professional yacht crew and for a couple of America's Cup campaigns, which of course landed me squarely in Newport, and ended up staying. So what you see here are some very early photos of Newport Harbor. as early as there were photos, and the top one is a drawing, which is why it's not particularly clear. But Newport is a really wonderful protected harbor, which is one of the things that brought the original settlers here. And Newport Harbor the city of Newport was the 5th largest city because of the port in colonial times. So there were wars, there were economic ups and downs, and Newport Harbor has got a different focus. There was a big Navy presence here, and that has turned from a home port for a lot of ships to the Naval War College and technology industry that Erin mentioned earlier. But Newport Harbor remains a draw for so many reasons, and so it's really morphed more to tourism and recreational boating than what it was originally as a commercial port. We've all heard it, well, I think most everybody's heard of the America's Cup, and that's one of the things that has put little tiny Newport on the map in so many countries. In the years that the America's Cup was raced out of Newport, 1930 to 1983, I think 12 other nations came here every 3 years to challenge for the cup. And that brought a lot of notoriety to Newport. And now there are still many, many international regattas. The bottom is the Invitational Cup out of New York Yacht Club, which is this year with 14 nations. And there are, I counted 12 regattas in Newport with international participation just this year. I also counted, Erin mentioned tourism is one of our biggest parts of our economy. I counted the list that's been out right now, the current list as it stands, 74 cruise ship visits to Newport this summer. That's my all-time favorite, the Queen Mary. And Newport is, this is the Newport shipyard, which is a big driver in the Newport economy. You'll see lots of mega yachts, big ships, but small boats as well, all through the harbor, which are very, very important to what happens in Newport every summer, and as Erin mentioned, year round. I thought I would also talk about the range of properties that we sell here in Newport. People are very familiar with the Newport mansions, and some are museums, some have been broken up into condominiums, but a lot are still privately owned, and they do change hands, and we do transact, Newport mansions here. And it's an exciting thing to see. Newport is a very interesting place to sell real estate because it's a little bit of everything. All the properties I'm going to quickly describe are ones that I have sold either on my seller's or my buyer's behalf in the last 5 years or so. The top one is right near Hammersmith Farm and has a spectacular view of the East Passage of Narragansett Bay. And they did a tremendous amount of work when they bought that, and the price on that these days, the asking price would be over 20 million. And then the little house is in Newport's historic point section, which has so many homes. Newport has more pre-revolutionary colonial structures than any other city or town in the US, more than New York, Boston, Philadelphia combined. And this little house is mid-1700s. It's in the point section. That house is probably in the range of $1 million, give or take a little bit, even though it's small. It's in a really special location in Newport in the point section. This is a house on the cliff walk. And then you'll see in the distance, the big home behind it has been divided up into 12 units, but the one in the foreground is a single family home. And those people have actually chosen to move to Newport after retirement and make that a home. Newport is a very, we see clients, we do a lot of business in the second home market, and we see a lot of people from the rest of New England, particularly Connecticut and the Boston area, also from New York, New Jersey, and a lot of people buy second homes here in the thought that they would like to retire here at some point. The bottom picture is from a condominium on Goat Island, a building built in the 80s, and those small one-bedroom condos are selling around $600,000 now. This is the needle in the haystack in Rhode Island, in Newport specifically. This is the house with single level living, which is a really hard thing to find, and in a lovely neighborhood, Cape Catherine, in Newport, with slightly larger lots and newer homes. By newer, I mean the 1980s instead of the 1880s or the 1780s. People are very familiar with the Cliff Walk, and the coastline in Newport is what draws us here. Both the coastline you get looking inland, and the coastline you get looking at the ocean. And this is really what draws people here. I also wanted to add something that Erin mentioned, the big marine industry that we have in the two counties that the chamber represents. The state of Rhode Island is sales tax free for the marine industry. So if you buy a boat, if you buy marine diesel, if you have repairs, if you buy equipment for the boat, it's sales tax free in Rhode Island, which really encourages more business here. So I hope you'll look me up if you come to Newport. I love to show the place off. You can tell how much I love being here and love bringing new people to Newport. And I will hand it over to Julie for some of the hard facts about what I've just discussed. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming this morning and sticking it out with all of this wonderful information that is so wonderful to hear. I'm going to share my screen and introduce myself a little bit more formally. And let's see if I do this accurately. Share screen. Window. So can you all see that? Oh, yeah, you did. Okay. So my name is Julie Shalou. I'm the broker owner of a company that's been in business since 2004. I've been a real estate agent since 1994. And my company is called New England Properties of Distinction. And one of our offices happens to be in Newport County. And because I am a Rhode Island native, I've been lucky enough to be a part of the Newport community, both with where I live, and one of my hobbies is sailing a catamaran. Although both of these pictures of me and my racing partner are not in Newport, one is in New York Harbor and one is in Sarasota. For years, we were New England champs when I was much younger, and so we would have to defend our title and go around the country. One of the things that I love about the sailing community is I get to meet people from other countries, from South Africa, from Australia, from England, and we've really have a wonderful fleet and a great set of members of the different groups that we sail in. I wanted to talk a little bit about what both Erin and Annie touched on, is being a real estate agent in Rhode Island. You do end up with quite a lot of international clients from over the years. And yes, a lot of them come from the sailing community, but even more come from international business transfers, parents of college students in one of the many institutions around around Rhode Island that attract international students. And some people are just moving here permanently. I have a client here that just moved here from Spain. Another one moved here from Ireland. And it's not unusual for people to move here for the lifestyle. And of course, we have the Naval Base and the War College. And a lot of my clients over the years have been either instructors at the War College or officers in training, fighter pilots and whatnot from the Naval Base and as students in the War College. We also get military personnel that come in from out of the country that are being trained at the War College. So we'll get people from, from all nations that are being trained at the War College. When you want to visit Newport, and I know a lot of you are thinking, wow, I'd love to come, I've never been. Just remember when you're wanting to come to Newport, we're on Aquidneck Island that has 3 towns, and Newport is the one town that does not allow short-term rentals of Airbnbs. Now, what we do have is a number of beautiful hotels and bed and breakfasts, but if you want an Airbnb for shorter than a month, you'd have to go at least into the town next door of Middletown or over the bridges into South County. If you wanted to have a long-term stay, what we would consider a longer-term stay, at least in Newport, is anything a month or longer. But when you're looking for a long-term stay, make sure that you reach out to a real estate broker or an agent that might have a little bit of an in on the market, because you want to get a little bit of a sense of the fact that landlords are posting their properties numerous different ways for numerous different pricing in months. So a landlord may have a property like here on the top left corner, 30 Prospect Hill, that is listed by Warner Realty Group. They have 2 units in that, but it's listed about 6 times in MLS because of the fact that it has a winter rental pricing and seasonal pricing. And pretty much all landlords do the same thing. If they are not looking for a year-round tenant or are allowing for a year-round tenant, they're trying to get their winter rental done at a more reasonable discounted price. And then starting in May and June, you'll see the prices go up. And if you want to rent a property that you see year-round that is offered as a seasonal rental, you can sometimes ask for a discount, but you're not always going to get it. And then the highest price rental that we have right now listed in Newport is my friend Alex's listing at Mott and Chase, and it's $180,000 a month. And if you can afford that, you could have basically a 7-bedroom or 5-bedroom property overlooking the water with a beautiful pool. And I know that the owner is very particular because he does like to use it for the 4th of July, Memorial Day. And he's actually turned down $700,000 from a client recently that offered to rent it for about 6 to 9 months. And he said, no, I want to be there with my daughters for these 2 weekends. So you'll see people can get a little bit finicky. One of my listings that happens to be in Newport, it's one of the few rare places that you might find that's actually within walking distance to a beach. And it is within a few steps to Cliff Walk and Bellevue Avenue mansions. And in one direction, if you went up the coastline that you're seeing in the center picture, you'd be heading toward Easton's Beach, which is the entrance right in the center of the picture, and towards Middletown. And then right, if you were to follow the street down to the bottom right corner of the photograph, it would be heading over towards the shopping and the historic wharfs and the mansions. So this listing is right now available. The only month we have rented for 25 is August, but we're offering it in the summer months for $30,000 a month, and in the shoulder seasons, $25,000 a month. But you can also rent it throughout the fall and winter for $15,000 a month. Newport is still a seller's market, and I'm going to get to some of the trends in a minute. But right now, it's important that we heed what Annie is talking about. We have an amazing vacation economy, basically. So it's such an international destination that although we only have 24 active single-family homes, on the MLS, you have probably about 300 rentals available, and they're not all individual properties. As I mentioned, some rentals will be listed about 6 times, but not all of them. So it's a very interesting housing market where it's still very tight for purchasing, but rentals are plentiful right now. One of the things that draws people to the rental market is the naval base and, of course, the universities. But we also have a lot of people that rent out their properties. As Annie was mentioning, we have a huge second home market. So people that don't need the property anymore, instead of selling it, will notice the crazy high rents, and so they'll keep it as a second home, or they'll purchase a property as a second home. Some of the pricing differentials you'll see in the active markets are the lowest priced home that we have right now is $710,000. It's a 3-bed, 1-bath house. And the highest price is $22 million. It's a 7-bed, 5.5-bath property for 5,400 square feet. Now, 18 of those active listings are over $1 million. If you want $1 million home, there is a property that is one of those rare needle and haystack homes. It's a ranch, and it's 985,000, 4-bed, 2-bath, and only 1,700 square feet. But it is a very rare opportunity for people to be in a 1-level home in one of the most sought after cities of the East Coast. There's 24 active condos. They range in price from 325 up to 7 million. And then the 19 solds of condos in the last 90 days were between 200,000 and 1.4 million. The market trends are showing here. You can see, I pulled this right off of RPR this morning. You can see that the seller's market is starting to move towards balanced, but we do have just under 3 months worth of inventory. And once you get to 6 months worth of inventory is when you have a balanced market, as most people know. But right now, we still don't have enough inventory to satisfy the buyer demand. You can also see our comparisons here. In blue is Newport, and in orange is Newport County, and then yellow is the rest of Rhode Island, and red is the United States. So you can see that our median estimated value is still pretty high, comparatively speaking, over 800,000. But we do see fluctuations and changes, and as we're heading into the shoulder months of our housing market, and then into our high season, the spring and the summer, these amounts and percentages will change drastically. I'd like to just make a little bit of a connection with some of our European nations that we see a lot of people coming into Newport from, and that's been obviously since before the Revolutionary War. One of the center picture here is actually of a very popular stone. They call it a tower, but it used to be a windmill. It's a stone tower that is about 28 feet tall, and it's of Norse architecture. And it sits in the historic hill area of Newport at the top of Mill Street. And it was an old windmill that was built for Benedict Arnold, who was Rhode Island's first governor. He had a mansion that is no longer there, that this particular windmill was built for him right outside of his mansion. But it's a pretty unique structure, and it had many uses over the years. And when the British were here occupying Newport, they even used it to hold some of their ammunition. But one of the things that I thought was very interesting about this structure is that it has that Scandinavian Norse from the Viking era construction. And the only other similar type of structure that has been able to be found is in Warwickshire, England, which is about 100 miles from where Benedict Arnold grew up in Somerset, England. Now, when we talk about historic, in the United States, anything that is 50 years old can be considered historic, believe it or not. And I checked that fact because it didn't sound right. And but what we find, even though we're a pretty young nation, comparatively speaking to some of your nations, we still have a hard time keeping track of our tax records. So this was a listing that I had not too long ago that sold for just under 2 million. It came back on the market with the buyer's agent this past year, didn't sell for in the 2 million, 2.5 million range. But anyway, this house is the Willow's Edge house, and it's also in the Point, which was an old Quaker village back in the day. And so it has a very European flair. It very, very old homes, 17th century and 18th century homes. But also the yards and lots are very, very small. So they have a more European urban feeling to them. So the gardens are the focal points of the yards, and they may be as small as, 2 and 3,000 square feet. If you have a 5 or a 10,000 square foot lot on the point, it's pretty, pretty amazing to have. This house was redone by,
Julie, I'm
yes.
sorry. We're almost out of time. It's actually 5 to 10, and this is fantastic information. So I must cut you off there because one question that I did want to ask, and this is specific to Liam, since it's a global audience. Liam, we met at NAR, and one of your designations, you didn't really brag about yourself. One of your designations is your CIPS, which is Certified Certified International Property Specialist. And tell us a little bit about you're actually conducting business globally. You have partners in America. Just a little bit about that, because we just have about 4 minutes or so. Everybody's information was fabulous. The one thing I learned is I clearly have to save my pennies and euros to be able to purchase in some of these wonderful places. But Liam, if you could answer that, and then we'll quickly say goodbye to each of
Sure.
you.
So I suppose my history is that, like I referred to at the beginning, is that I am a retired policeman. I spent 30 years in the police, and then started my business in 2002. I was in apartment block management first, and I sold that business in 2010, and started Hogan Estates in 2010. Our so one thing that in 2016 was my first NAR conference in Orlando, and the one thing I took away from it was the MLS. And I actually reported back to our association in relation to it. And that kind of started my journey in the United States. And I was just looking at some of the list of participants here, and I would know quite a few of them from meeting them at both NAR annual and mid-year, and indeed even Tony. There, I see your name on the list. I meet Tony down in Cannes at MIPIM on a regular basis. So I started in 2016, and slowly but surely I developed a kind of an Irish mafia all over the United States. So I've got people in New Hampshire, New Jersey, Chicago, um, uh, Portland, Oregon, San Francisco, you name it, and they're all either Irish born or first or second generation Irish who are realtors in the United States and indeed in Canada. And so we refer business back and forward to each other. So I have people from here who are moving over to the United States with their business, and I refer them to somebody that I know and trust, obviously.
Exactly.
You're right. I am a CIPS designee, and I'm also the president of the APSI Ireland for my sins.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and look, the one thing I would say to any of you guys is if you want to know anything more about Ireland, just drop me an email. I'm happy to help. If any of you are visiting Ireland, reach out to me well in advance. Happy to recommend, happy to help you reduce the budget if I can at all, because Ireland could be an absolute tourist trap if you don't know where you're going. We have a lot in this country, a huge history in this country that you can explore. And if anybody is thinking about maybe buying in Ireland or even selling in Ireland, I'm happy to help in any way.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so, so much. And this is the point of this. The world is a very small place, and we have to make these connections and build on them. And we, again, encourage attendees to reach out to all of the panelists. And Aaron, if we have any questions, besides becoming a member of your organization, folks can actually just attend special events, correct?
Absolutely. And just check out our website, connectgreaternewport.com, and you will see lots of data and information related to economic investment and our recent housing study.
Perfect. Well, thank you all so very much. I look forward to seeing you virtually and in person in the near future. And thank you, all attendees.